All right. How's it going, guys?
Living the dream. Yourself?
I can't complain. Definitely starting to
I
get a
can't
little
hear
bit
you,
stir
David.
crazy. You can't hear me?
Let me try coming back in again.
I can hear Steve. And I can hear Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not, I'm doing what you can. Yourself?
Mostly just trying to make the best of the time that we've got. A little extra. Definitely starting to go stir crazy, that's for sure.
Well, I got out and played golf on Monday, so that kind of scratched an itch.
Nice.
Thanks
Where'd you go?
Thanks for rubbing it in.
Oh, sorry. Mondays is free employee golf day at my employer, Bellevue Country Club. So I was privy enough to play with 3 members who invited me, and it was sunny and 50s, and it was 3 inches of snow on the ground this morning. So
Nice.
welcome to Central New York.
Yeah, last night was some extra stuff. I stayed up. I've been kind of hit or miss with my sleep schedule since I'm not doing anything throughout the day.
Yeah, time
So
and
I was
date
up.
are irrelevant.
Yeah. So I was up until like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and it just got gross. Just before I went to bed. The snow was just like going sideways. I guess it's a good thing that we're all quarantined and can't like go do things, because I wouldn't want to go out in that anyway.
For sure. I didn't leave the house. I wasn't going to leave the house regardless of a quarantine today.
Yeah. But thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having
Yeah.
us.
It's been a little while since I've gotten to talk to either of you, honestly. Steve was on the show a while back before we took the hiatus. So it's been nice being back on and getting to talk to some of you guys. And if you guys want to introduce yourselves, give a little bit of a background to the people watching.
I'll let
Shawn.
Shawn go first.
Yeah. All right. So I'm Shawn Hannon. I'm the current chair of the Onondaga County Libertarian Party. I founded the party in 2016, I believe. Been holding meetings ever since. Kind of played around in the state party for a little while. Have helped out with some campaigns here locally, and a little bit with Larry Sharp's governor campaign. But that's kind of the short and gist of it. And I'm a bartender at a golf club, so I've made it.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm Steve Minogue. I am the vice chair of the Onondaga County Libertarian Party. I serve on the state committee now. I'm a at-large representative in the ISC. I am running for the vacant vice chair position that we'll be voting on the 26th. And I also got involved in the Sharp campaign. I was the regional coordinator for Central New York. I helped coordinate volunteers and such for the Sharp campaign or organize events. But yeah, Larry Sharp's kind of what brought me, or got me more involved in the Libertarian Party. Not necessarily what's brought me to the Libertarian Party, but what's definitely got me involved at the state level.
Awesome. Actually, that kind of brings me to one of the main points that I was going to ask, especially you, Steve. With him running again for VP, are you planning on working at all with him on that, or is he kind of going a different team route this time?
No, I definitely plan to help him in his bid for VP. Look, Larry is a great candidate, a great libertarian. I was very happy when I heard that he was entering the race, because I know originally that was not something that was necessarily in the cards or that anyone was predicting. So to see that was really, because we didn't really have a lot of buzz around our VP race in the LP. And he definitely kind of amped things up and got people excited about the VP race. So
Yeah.
I definitely will be helping him.
Awesome. Yeah, there really isn't anybody that's running for VP other than him and Spike Cohen, right? Everybody
John
else
McAfee,
is right. That's
I think,
true.
right? McAfee's with Kokesh, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about that. I stopped paying attention to him back when he was still trying to run for president.
To his credit, he did hold a rave at the national convention.
That is true. I've heard good stories about
Probably
that night.
the one and only time that there'll ever be a rave at the. Well, I wouldn't say the only time, I guess, but
No,
he definitely cracked the seal there. So it was quite impressive.
that's good. What about you, Shawn? You going to be working with Larry again, or you have another horse in the
I have
race?
nothing set up in an official capacity, but he has my support. He's going to get my vote as a delegate every round at the convention, if and when there is a convention. So yeah, I mean, if he wants my help, I'm more than welcome to volunteer again.
Awesome. Does that mean for both of you that your votes also go to Jim Gray, or do you have kind of different feelings there?
I'll speak. So I'm a delegate for Jacob Hornberger, and my first vote at the convention will be for Jacob Hornberger. I guess I'll see what happens after that and kind of play it by ear or sight and see, kind of feel it out. But I plan on going down there with the intentions of voting Hornberger Sharp every round.
Okay.
So I'm an at-large delegate. I'm not tied to any candidate to the national convention. I have not necessarily decided. So I helped Dan Taxation and Steph Berman when he was trying to get on our ballot. I was working with him. I've done some work with the Armstrong campaign, helping them, just because I really wanted a competitive primary in New York State. And then with Sharp entering in, I mean, I like Judge Gray as well, but I'm not decided yet. I mean, and then there's the possibility now of Amash jumping in.
Right.
So I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I know that I will vote for Sharp for VP in every round, but I have not decided who I'm going to vote for president.
Honestly, me either. I'm
Yeah.
still, though I'm not a delegate, so I most likely won't have the opportunity to vote for any of those people unless some of the rules change and there's some vacant delegacies from other states, or somebody from our state decides they don't want to go. But I'm not even on the alternate list, so there's a good chance I won't even be in Austin.
Well, if we're in Austin altogether, there's still
Right.
clearly a very big question mark whether or not the convention not only will happen in Austin, but if it will happen the dates that we have it scheduled. So I think there's been discussion of both moving it the date and keeping it at Austin, and moving the date and moving it away from Austin. So I think May 2nd we'll probably get a better clarity from National on that and how they're going to kind of move forward. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's definitely opportunity to be a delegate if you walk on the floor in Austin, if the convention. So even if you're not a delegate when you get there, there's a good chance that you could be one at some point during there. So I would encourage you to go to Austin, or anybody to go to Austin, participate in the process, because there could be a chance for you to at least voice your opinion.
Right. That's what our state rep from Brooklyn was talking about last night. We had our Brooklyn LP meeting last night, and he was kind of encouraging everybody because he was one of two people on the list, or at the meeting, that are on the list. So he was trying to push everybody in the same fashion, that there's always open seats. So, come down and try your luck, because it's better to be there.
Especially right now with
and sometimes go ahead.
I was just saying, especially right now with the pandemic, there's going to be some last minute dropouts. And, if people are an alternate, they're maybe not as likely to buy a plane ticket or book a hotel room. So there's probably going to be some openings. And we're going to be looking for libertarians from New York State to fill those.
Right. All right. So one thing that I like to ask, because everybody that comes on the show, is just kind of your testimony of libertarianism and how you came to the party, and who the first candidate that you either voted for or supported was. So I know you already kind of touched on that, Steve, but if you want to kind of expound on that a little bit.
Sure. So, I mean, I first heard the term libertarianism probably during the Ron Paul campaign in 2012. And it was really just it's, I had been like a Republican before. I'd been a Democrat before too, but Ron Paul, hearing the word libertarianism, that was kind of the first time I heard that come up, and it was on social media during his run, and it got me really interested. And he made a lot of good points. But for me to get like really fully involved in the party was really Larry Sharp in 2018. And he also had a great way of kind of breaking things down of like, look, you can be as liberal, as conservative as you want to be. Just don't force your views upon others, and especially don't use government force to kind of force your viewpoints on others. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is the use of government force, which really like set off a light bulb in my head. Like, wow, like that's a great point. If your ideas are so great, you shouldn't need the force of government to implement those ideas. And that's really what kind of brought me, or got me more involved in the party, I should say. Not what brought me to the party, but what got me way more involved, to the point where I'd actually volunteer, run for a state committee, and invest the time that I've invested now into the party for sure.
Gotcha. And how about you, Shawn?
My path here, I guess I'm a child of the Ron Paul Revolution, 2007, 2008 version. Continued on through 2012. Kind of fell out of favor after 2012 and didn't really pay attention, or maybe became apathetic again after 2012. And then really, as I said, in 2016, when I didn't think there was going to be a candidate that I could find to support, that's when I kind of, reached out to Libertarian Party in Rochester and asked, what to do to get one here in Onondaga County, and here we are 4 years later. So I guess I'm a child of the Ron Paul Revolution. He kind of opened my eyes to, the idea that there was more than two political, paths out there, and that there was more to those positions. He is my political muse, if you will, to wake me up, kind of like as Steve said, to the idea that there's more than red.
Right. Yeah, I owe a decent chunk of my activity in the Libertarian Party to you, Shawn, because after 2016, I supported Gary Johnson, but not very actively. I told my friends about him, but definitely wasn't involved in the campaign at all. But then I think it was either December or January 2017. I showed up to an Onondaga County meeting and met you and some of the other guys there, and found out that there's actually a full movement in local candidates and people positions within a county party or a state party, and realized that it was something that I could actually be more involved in than just talking about stuff on Facebook. And like you said, here we are 4 years later. I've now run for office, and
I feel like everybody who's interested and involved is, if you want a voice where your voice matters, like some of the smaller parties, you can really be more influential because you're fighting is the established narrative that's been entrenched in those for forever. So and obviously when you joined us in Onondaga, we were brand new, so we were we're just get our feet wet and get established here. So we were taking input from everybody and anybody we could.
Right. Yeah, and I've gotten to feel firsthand now what you just mentioned of fighting the establishment in a different party, having worked for Tulsi Gabbard this past year. It's not an easy thing to do, to take part in a major party and try to push anti-establishment ideals. You kind of get silenced every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean,
I was
especially with
interested to
DNC.
see there's a lot of parallels. I thought there was a lot of parallels with the Ron Paul campaign and Tulsi's campaign in a lot of ways, that the establishment pushed back, tried to minimize her presence in the debates, try to, mischaracterize her as something that she wasn't, all the same ways they did Ron Paul, just it was coming from the GOP as opposed to the DNC.
Right. Yeah, there was, and it was interesting to see how many shared supporters they had. The amount of times that I saw like Ron Paul, Gary Johnson, Tulsi Gabbard bumper stickers side by side on cars, especially up in New Hampshire, was pretty constant, actually. A couple of them had a Rand Paul thrown in there too. It's kind of interesting to see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, too bad it's not more popular with the people in power. That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, anti-war is a popular issue, and I think it's popular among people, but the media really doesn't give it the credence that it deserves. Tulsi really was resonating with a lot of people, but the problem was that it's easy to discount someone when you don't see them on the news all the time. And I'm not like a Trump fake news guy, right? But it's not popular to air the anti-war message because war, what is it? In the news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, war is a popular issue for news media, and so yeah, if you have an anti-war candidate, it's easy to silence that person.
Yeah, yeah, they do love to silence anybody that goes against that, and there's way too much money to be made in war by different corporations and the media and the politicians that use it as kind of a fear mongering ploy to get more votes. Like, oh, you need this me who's got experience in war to keep continuing us through this war. Somehow that got Bush through. Uh,
Sure.
and we're seeing Trump try to use that again this year, trying to, just today he's talking about blowing up Iranian ships that are harassing our ships. You know, it's a popular way to make people have faith in you when they're scared of
He wouldn't
somebody else.
he wouldn't be the first. He wouldn't be the first president to start a war in an election year.
No, he'd be basically like every other president.
You got it. You got
um,
it.
well, Shawn, I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of what it was like starting up a county chapter. Not especially with your
Sure.
closest people being over an hour away. Um, how did that go? How'd you go about it?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'll kind of give you a kind of a walkthrough. Had no expectations, had no idea what I was doing in all reality. So, I'm a bartender. I worked at a restaurant, which has turned out to be probably some of the let's just say it's opened a lot of doors and has allowed the party to kind of coattail on my employer somehow in different aspects in different places that I've been. So early on when I was at this restaurant, I just used it as a meeting place, right? So like I had the owners like me, they gave me access to the building. The food was good as a side note. So I would have meetings there. And I had my first meeting just through social media, right? I did a meetup post. I created a Facebook page, just sent it out, see what happened. I think I had 7 people show up. One of them was a longtime Libertarian member from Rochester who just showed up because he had heard that somebody was going to try to start a chapter in Onondaga. So he came down. So he was the 7th, but he had said there, he's like, listen, he's like, you have enough to form a chapter on day 1, because you needed, at that time we needed 7 people. Technically it wasn't true, but his point is that we have come within 1 meeting. We were basically on the verge of having a chapter. 2 meetings later, I had a meeting that I put out. I tried to promote it as best I could. I had like 25 people show up at the restaurant for free food, which I'm sure was very influential coming. And I had several people from the state party come down. I did a little presentation, and I maintained that restaurant as a place of meeting throughout the formation of this party. For certain events that, I don't know, made it seem like gave it a little bit of credibility. But anyway, so the people kept coming, whether or not it was for the food or for the libertarianism. They came, and some people stayed. So not everybody stayed, and people came and went. And, depending on, we had back to 2016, there was several, maybe a small handful of Austin Peterson who came into the party through Austin Peterson and never really kind of stayed with the party when Gary Johnson became the nominee. So I'm assuming they're still out there, and I'm assuming they're still waiting for the right candidate, and maybe they have one now, I don't know. But I still think there's a bigger presence than what the party shows. So that's how I kind of got it started. I've had really good people here early on, especially like getting off the ground, and people that were willing to help. Even some local officials that were willing to help, really trying to help the party reach access and be legitimate. and like I said, as you stick around and you get people like Steve who come on board who really help things, who really take a passion for it and try to push the ball even further than they had taken it, and we've done that. So it's about the people. I mean, it's not a one-person thing here. All I can say is that I keep showing up and just hoping that people keep following. So at some point that'll all change, and we'll see what happens as things go forward. But right now, we're just going to keep going. It's been a quality 4 years, I guess. We haven't had any electoral wins that I can necessarily, pin a flag on. But I think that we have a credible party in our county. I think we're taken, seriously enough to be included in most discussions. I have the ear of several local politicians here who ask me for my opinion on things, which I'm not sure is pretty common throughout the state. So I think we're fortunate that way. But the party, the local party has been solid. I can think that's, even though it's a small core group of people, they're passionate and they're dedicated, and that helps us keep going.
Awesome. Yeah. Did you guys had a couple of like cross endorsement wins last year, right?
We did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Shawn makes a good point too,
Go ahead.
like about being involved in the discussion and having the ear of some of the local officials, and cross endorsements have allowed us to do that. I know there are some libertarian some of the county parties that are just like, hey, we're not cross endorsing anybody, but there is some benefit there, right? For example, the state Democratic chairman reached out to us this year because of our cross endorsement of a couple Democrats last year. And granted, we did not necessarily just automatically cross endorse the people that he recommended to us, but the fact that they're reaching out to us and wanting to talk about policy is a win. In my opinion, and I'm sure I'm pretty sure Shawn would agree that, like, just having the ear of those type of people, we can move the benchmark a little bit, or move the Overton window a little bit to where Democrats will start to talk about civil liberties again. And
Mhm.
so yeah, and yeah, we've had some cross endorsement wins. They haven't all, resulted in massive policy change, but the fact that we're included in the conversation is important, I think, to grow as a party. Unfortunately, we live in a world where the major two parties still do dominate the conversation. So if we can just kind of like insert our talking points in there, and get the ear of the right people, maybe we can start to kind of shift that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think a cross endorsement win is better than nothing for sure. And like you're saying, getting the ear of public officials, that's something I've been trying to work on down in the city, uh, severely less successfully, let's just say, than you guys have up there. Um, and it's a work in progress, but I hope that more counties can kind of follow suit and get that legitimacy that you guys have been able to gather up in Onondaga County, and we can, like you said, shift the Overton window towards liberty. That's the ultimate goal. Did either of you guys have anything to? Did either of you guys
Go
have
ahead, Dave.
anything to do with the Claudia Tenney trying to get our party line? Did either of you guys have anything to do with that one?
Now, that
I
was
did
Broome
not.
County. Yeah, that was Broome County. Ed Hickey. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding Ed Hickey. He was a Republican before. Um, I believe he supported Sharp, but I'm not positive on that. He was, though,
Hmm.
able to get the numbers to form his own county committee down there in Broome County, and he supported most Republican candidates. He's very much a Republican. He it does seem to, and yeah, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it does seem to be a attempt at a Republican takeover of the party. The fact of the matter is, there's a Libertarian running,
Hmm.
in Broome County, and in spite of that, Ed Hickey submitted a fraudulent Wilson Pakula request, for Claudia Tenney, who's a Republican candidate. So I mean, there's a lot of controversy around that issue. I'm, and this is just my opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the state committee, but I do think that He's a Republican who was just trying to take over our line and give it to Republicans. Just any Republican that came to him that wanted the line, he was going to give it to them.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely what it seemed like to me. I just caught this story the other day when the email went out from the state party saying that we won the lawsuit and that she got booted off the line. Because yeah, I mean, like you said, we have a libertarian running, and even if you're just being objective between her and her Democratic opponent, I feel like most libertarians would probably side with the Democratic opponent, considering the fact that he's more of a fiscally conservative Democrat. A little, he's a member of the Blue Dog Coalition. You know, he's a little bit more centrist leaning, where Claudia's a full like big government authoritarian Republican type. So I didn't understand that at all. But so yeah, just Republican takeover seems like the most logical explanation to me too.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same issue in Niagara County as well. So, the Republican Party in New York State has lost a lot of steam, and they're
Mm-hmm.
taking notice of here's an opportunity at another ballot line, and unfortunately, if you can get people to change their party and get 9 of them in a room, you can form an interim county organization.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that this is happening widespread, but Broome and Niagara, they're really the only two that are extremely concerning to us.
Right. We had a libertarian win in Broome County last year, right? Did he end up winning after the recount?
He did. So, I mean, that was the DA's race.
Mm-hmm. And that was a straight 3-way race. That wasn't even a cross endorsement. So
Correct. Yeah,
that was
that was a
big
good
news.
one. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm. I like to. I had fun throwing that around on election night because in New York City, me and my chairman ran for public advocate, Devin Balkine, and I was running for New York City Council. We both landed in like the mid 3%, but we had a win in the state, so it was still a pretty big cause for celebration. It was a good election night party, even though we both did better than anybody else had ever done in New York City. So that we had that, plus we had the win in Broome County, and neither of us really liked Maj Tory, so that was kind of fun to, to see those results come in. I had a good night. I'm not sure how you guys feel about Maj, but I know in the city he's not ever anybody's favorite person.
I mean, I don't really know enough about him, I guess. I know. I mean, I know he's good on guns, but I don't know how much of a libertarian he really is, other than guns.
Yeah, I mean, he had the rhetoric for sure, but when it came to, for me as just a voter, I don't particularly care too much about personality type. But once I started getting involved in the party, I started caring a little bit more about that kind of stuff because you understand how much pull somebody like say Larry Sharp can have, just being the candidate and doing as well as he did. He now has a huge amount of pull in the state, and nothing against Larry. I'm just using him as an example. If he turned out to be a shitty person that nobody wanted to work with, that could have been problematic. So I got to hear a little bit of the drama about Maj from Nick Sarwark, the national chair,
Right.
while I was up in New Hampshire. So it was, I say good riddance, but I know a lot of people would disagree with me, including Larry. So we'll see.
Shawn, do you know about Maj or?
No, I mean, I'm aware. Again, I'm guessing he's good on guns. It seems like that, but I'm not sure of his the rest of his libertarian skill set, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
He seems
I
like
would
a
argue
passionate
too.
individual for sure. Like I think he's probably a hell of an activist for sure.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
think personality type is super important, though. When you look at, I'm always looking at electability.
Mm-hmm.
As a political science major, I do like to look at, messaging is something that I really like to study, messaging and how it's received and polling. And we don't, libertarians in the past have not done a great job at this. There's a way to sell libertarianism that isn't maybe the
Scary.
Ayn Rand. Yeah, right. Like the Ayn Randian individualist, type of messaging. And I agree with Ayn Rand on almost everything, but there is a way to sell it that doesn't really scare people away. And I do think, Hornberger is a good, he does a good job at messaging. Larry Sharp obviously does a great job. Look at the following that he gathered. From people, the way I look at it is you need to find people from other parties. You need to get them to agree with you. People from Democrat, Republican, Independents. You need to find ways to reach them where they walk away saying like, "Hey, you know what? Like, wow, that is a pretty good idea." And that's something that we just haven't done a great job at in the past. And
And I think that goes to the idea, Steve, that maybe you agree with me that we have a lot of engineers, but not a lot of salesmen in the Libertarian Party. So we got a lot of, policy wants, if you will, people who are very into, the nuances and the philosophy. And it's obviously super interesting to me even. So, but I think there's way more of that than there are people who have the ability to ask for the sale. So I think that there are super smart people in the party. I mean, super smart people. They need to hitch those ideas to somebody like a Larry Sharp, if you will. We keep using our guy in New York here, but somebody who has the ability to message effectively without scaring the person as they're hearing it. And Larry does it excellent. He does it some of the best. So, and I think we need more salesmen in the party to kind of get that message in the right narrative so that it's able to land.
Right. It's all about how you frame it. And I think the term salesman gets like a negative connotation, but that's exactly what the hell we need. We need salesmen because, we have the best ideas. Our ideas will give people the best outcomes outside of government force. We just need someone to sell it in a way that it's palatable to the average voter who aren't following things the way we are.
Right. I think it's interesting that you said engineers versus salesmen, because especially within the New York City party, a solid 2/3 of them are software engineers or engineers by trade.
Oh, wow.
That is, and another decent chunk are lawyers. And I think I'm the only person in the city party that's actually a salesman by trade. And to your point, yeah, salesmen, we kind of get a bad rap.
And here you are out here messaging, right? So that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do my best. I definitely, when I was running for city council, my platform was fairly left libertarian, as a lot of kind of more center libertarians would call it, but not, but more just in messaging, not actually the whole thing. But I was talking a lot more about legalizing marijuana in Flatbush, Brooklyn, than I was repealing the SAFE Act or something like that. Of course, if anybody asked me how I felt about guns,
that's an effective salesman, right?
yeah,
Knowing your audience, knowing how to that's where you know how to ask for the sale. So you targeted your audience, you knew what you were going after, you used a message that was effective to them, and it landed. So you're right in a sense that you have to kind of cater your message to your audience, and that's what a good salesperson does. That's how you get sales, because you know what the person's looking for and you can fit their needs with the product that you're selling.
Right. And I think one of the bigger pulls towards the Libertarian Party isn't even the things that the major party that they're a part of is missing, but more the things that they just haven't delivered on. Like in New York City, every politician in New York City, or every Democratic politician in New York City, has campaigned on legalizing marijuana for almost a decade now, and it's still not legalized. So it's not even what we have different, but just, okay, you tried that party year and year and year again, and they haven't delivered on the promises. Try a different party. This is one of our main things. We've been advocating for this for 50 years now. And nobody libertarian has gotten elected without trying to push that through right away. We do have a couple of mayors throughout the country that have been able to push that through, and there are states with a more libertarian focus, like Colorado, that have pushed that through, or New Hampshire with their gun laws are better than most Republican-controlled states. So just kind of the the believability of the Libertarian Party. Like, let us do what we've said we were going to do for the last 50 years, because we're actually going to do it and not just pander to you for your vote. I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, now we just need to get more people elected so they can do those things.
For sure.
That's kind of the trouble.
Steve, you mentioned that you were going to be running for the vacant vice chair position. First of all, are you trying to run for the first or the second vice chair slot?
So the first vice chair slot is automatically filled by Tucker Coburn, who was the second vice chair formerly.
Okay.
So that's automatically he moves into that position, because Tony, who was first vice chair, now becomes the chairman.
Okay.
And so now that vacant position is that second vice chair. So that's what I'm going to be running for.
Okay. And how's that transition been going, in your opinion? I know Jim
Actually,
was there for quite a while.
yeah, no, and I love Jim, and look, Jim has worked his butt off for this party, and he's really done a lot, and I appreciate everything he's done.
Mm-hmm.
I think if any of us, if there was any other option besides him resigning, obviously he's had health issues and so I completely understand. And if it was up to any of us, he would still stay in that position. He was a great chairman, but Tony, look, Tony's great. He's phenomenal. He's done a lot of really good work across the state, and especially during the Sharp campaign, he was really, really good. I think he's doing a great job so far. And me and Tony have spoken, and he's really taken like a really active role in like, hey, look, this is where I'm at now. This is my position, and there's some things we got to get done and accomplished. Leading up to these primary elections, or well, if they still happen in June. But he's been really, really good. And so, yeah, I think transition's been as seamless as it can be, I guess, when something like this happens, when the state chairman resigns. And Tony's really stepped up and taken a lot on that he wasn't necessarily anticipating having to take on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I unfortunately haven't gotten to interact with Tony very much, other than when the state committee interviewed me for the Wilson Pakula nomination last year. He ran that meeting. Jim was unavailable. I think it was just a weird time, and that's really been pretty much the only interaction I've had with him. I spent a lot more time talking to Jim, especially when we were trying to get the Oswego County chapter up and running before I moved down to the city. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Tony can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little bit of change up top might be what we needed. Of course, also love and respect Jim. Would hate to see him go, but I think maybe a little shakeup could come in handy.
Sure. And I mean, look, Tony is he's a people person, which is great too. He really does get along with pretty much anyone and everyone. He did a great job as like Larry's hype man. I gave speeches at a few events that Larry Sharp had done during the Sharp campaign, and Tony was the MC, and he really does get along. He's a super personable guy. We talked about salesmen earlier. Tony's a great salesman. He does a really good job of kind of hyping up Larry at the time, but really hyping up the party, supporting its people. And so, I do hope that I do win on the 26th. And I'd be excited to work under Tony. He's a really exciting guy to be around.
Do you know of anybody that's challenging you?
It's it's all kind of up in the air at this point. Dwayne Whitmer was going to go out for it. Him and I spoke last night. He's going to support me. There is word that there's someone in the Capital District that's going to run against me. So we'll see. So potentially definitely one, potentially two challengers going up against me for the position. Which is fine. I welcome anyone to run, and if I think that somebody would do a better job than I would as vice chair, I would step aside. But I do think that I'm a good fit for the position. I've done a lot of work for the party in the short. I've only been in the party for 2.5 years, and I've done a lot of work for the party, and I do
Yeah.
feel like I'd be a good fit for the position. But again, if there was somebody, we don't necessarily always disclose that we're running. I've publicly disclosed that I'm running, and that I want the position, and I have the support of multiple people across the state committee. But I don't know. I won't necessarily know until the 26th who else is throwing their name in the ring there.
Right. Well, definitely good luck. I also hope you win.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
watched you do a lot of work for the party. I met you in New York City, quite a ways away from home, working for Larry. So I've seen you put in the work for sure. I'd love to see you on the state committee.
Well, thank you.
Do you guys have any local candidates going this year, or already set up for next year yet?
I'll let you take it, Shawn.
Yeah, I was just going to let you take it since you're the political director here and kind of organize all the candidates here, so you have a better handle on the pulse there.
We do have a few. They're all across the door, so we don't have any Libertarian only candidates. But we do have some a state assembly candidate that we're excited about. We have 2 family court judge candidates that we're excited about. But we don't, unfortunately, this year have any Libertarian only candidates, which we were really hoping for. But with the political, with the filing calendar moved up and everything like that, we were not able to recruit a candidate and get them kind of spun up in time.
Yeah, I know that petitioning deadline hurt quite a few people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to next year too, though, because I do think that next year, the way the election cycle works is mostly local elections, right? So you got the town boards, your supervisors, the county legislator, more local elections. We're going to have candidates next year. I'm guessing on a multiple candidate level. So, we're always open to cross endorsements, but we're always looking for Libertarian candidates to run for those offices first and foremost.
You guys have mayor up for re-election, right? Mayor of Syracuse.
Yeah, that'll be interesting for us, and maybe me in particular. Maybe we've talked about this, Dave. But so I talked to Mayor Walsh before he became Mayor Walsh. Those of you who don't know, he's a unaffiliated mayor, so he was never been enrolled with any political party. His father was a Republican congressman for upstate New York a long time, Jim Walsh. But his son, Ben, who's now the mayor of Syracuse, was never enrolled with any party. We talked several times, maybe 2 or 3 times, about him running under the Libertarian banner when he ran in 2000. What was it? 17, I guess. He chose to run independent and keep his kind of party affiliation away from his campaign altogether, and I think it worked for him. I'm not sure that running as Libertarian would have changed anything, but the ability for him to run outside of the 2 major parties, he had some name recognition and he had some money, and he won. He beat the 2 establishment candidates. He beat the Republican candidate. I think she got like 2.5%. I mean, some minuscule number. She lost. She actually finished 4th behind the Green candidate. But so anyway, he still does not have a party affiliation. Both parties have expressed that they are going to run a candidate against Mayor Walsh. So
really,
he's still looking for a party without one. I'm not sure that we're the fit for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's discussions about that.
Yeah, I think that election is the only time that I've worked for a candidate that I didn't want to win, because I was rooting for Ben while we were working for Fowler.
Right.
I petitioned for Fowler, but I was definitely secretly hoping that Walsh would win, and he hasn't let me down.
Yeah, it was been a unique circumstance. I mean, listen, if you listen to the people who are Republicans locally here, he's just a lefty. The Democrats think he doesn't do enough, so they're going to run a candidate. So again, I would have been somewhat surprised if the parties didn't run a candidate against him. I mean, it's the mayor, right? So you figure if you're a political party, regardless of your relationship with the current mayor, you should have a candidate.
Right.
Pushing forward your ideas. So I'm not surprised that they're running candidates. I still think he's a favorite. I haven't heard much about the candidates or have kind of heard of any perennial favorites that would go against him, but I expect him to have candidates, and I expect there to be at least some communication between his campaign and our party.
That would be great. I was blown away by the landslide victory that he did take. It was what, like 53 or 54% in a 5-way race.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers. Yeah, it was significant. And like I said, we were a primarily blue city. His dad was a Republican.
And his
You have a
grandfather.
a demographic that largely. Yeah, he was the mayor of Syracuse, I believe. But no, the electorate is clearly a blue electorate, and he won all the districts, even the most blue heavy districts he won, and like you said, in the landslide.
Yeah, I like the moment when I was happiest of his victory was, I think it was this past year, the city council voted to give everybody a raise, including himself, and he vetoed that. And that was like, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
all right, you're cool.
I sent him a letter. I don't know that he read it or not, but I sent him a letter expressing my opinion that he should veto that. So he did. I mean, listen, you might want to consider it. I was glad that he did, just like you were. I think that he knew no matter what he did, they were going to pass it anyway. So he could score political points regardless of the actual end result, but at least he took the stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can question his motives. There definitely is something that he is. At the end of the day, he is still a politician. But yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he maintained that popularity. I definitely have seen people that liked him when he ran. That once you are the person that people get to point fingers at and say, "Oh, you're the reason that this is wrong," you start to lose favor. We watched the same thing happen with Trump. Just being that person at the top puts a target on your back for sure.
Yeah. And like I said, we don't know who his opponents are going to be, if they're going to be strong candidates or not. So like if strong candidates come out for some of these other parties, I could see they're chipping away at his landslide numbers for sure. Because the candidate that the Republican put up last time was, not a strong candidate. The Democrat candidate actually was kind of an insurgent candidate herself, where she, wasn't the designated nominee for the mayor race, and she forced a primary and then won. So she didn't really have the support of the establishment local party either, because she was kind of an outsider. So it was kind of like a perfect storm for him. He exploited it and took advantage of it and won. So, as an unaffiliated mayor of a decent city, I think that is a win for politics in general.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So I know that this got brought up a little bit earlier, but we are possibly like within a day or two of Amash jumping into the Libertarian presidential race. I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that.
Let me check Twitter real quick. Hold on. Let me check Twitter real quick to make sure he hasn't announced anything.
I have notifications turned on for his
Twitter
account.
No, I know. I made sure I didn't do nothing yet, so we're good. Yeah, no, listen, I mean, as I said before, I'm a Hornberger Sharp guy. That's how I am when if the convention was today. That being said, I've been waiting for Amash to run for president for 5 years since he turned 35. So I think it's super exciting for the party if it turns out to be true. I know there is. I don't know how significant it is, but there is definitely pushback from some of the delegates and some of the party membership about late entries into the presidential race. How whether or not it's fair or not to the candidates who have put in the time and effort in the previous months campaigning and crisscrossing the country. My opinion is those candidates probably had to do that, crisscross the country, to build up their name recognition, to kind of build up a campaign, to kind of build up a team, build up an ability to run for president. I think Amash has that already in place. I think he needs to message the delegation. I think he needs to communicate with the membership and kind of give them a message of what his ideas are as a presidential candidate if he does in fact enter. But I'm not going to hold it against him for entering late. It's super complex. He was running for office. He had certain rules that he had to abide by, and I'm not going to hold that against him. The timing of his announcement. When I go down there, I'm gonna vote for the candidate who I think is going to best represent the Libertarian Party.
All right.
Yeah, I would echo a little bit of that. Look, I've helped out with a few different LP presidential campaigns so far this cycle. And right now I've been helping Armstrong because I mean, without Amash in the race, I think Armstrong is great. I think he has the government experience that with voters beyond the LP could sort of resonate. That will kind of resonate with them. But at the same time, if Amash were to join the race, I would probably be on the Amash train. Look, with him, you get a really good group of voters outside of our echo chamber. You get the never Trump Republicans. You get the never Biden Democrats, which there are a lot of. A lot of Democrats,
Yeah,
especially
you
progressives.
get the impeachment Democrats who don't like Biden, right?
Right, exactly, and that's there's a decent number of those folks, and he's principled. He's never changed his message. He's said, "I'm the only libertarian in Congress." Um, I like him a lot, and and I not that I don't empathize with the candidates that have been traveling the country and trying to garner delegates and go to these state conventions and that they spent money and things like that. But with Amash, you get automatic name recognition. You get those voter demographics that we talked about, and not to mention he's going to have a team behind him, maybe a more experienced team than some of the other LP candidates might be bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And I think that you can't really look past that. And speaking a little bit selfishly, ballot access is a problem in New York now all of a sudden, because it used to be every 4 years. Now it's every 2 years. So all of a sudden our presidential candidate is tied to our ballot access for the next 2 years. And if there's ever a place you're going to find disaffected Democrats and disaffected Republicans, it's going to be New York State. And having a candidate like Amash may get us over that threshold.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my main concerns, extremely selfishly, because I intend on running for office next year, and the petitioning process for a libertarian without ballot access is quite
It's great.
ridiculous,
Oh my God,
especially
yeah.
in New York City with such a high density and population. The petitioning threshold for a mayoral race is insane. Um, Yeah, I definitely also, like you guys both mentioned, I sympathize with the people that have been crisscrossing the country, but like you said, Shawn, he doesn't really have to do that necessarily. I know Jim Gray caught a lot of flack for being a late entry, and I kind of agreed with that, but I think Amash is kind of in a different camp. He's joining the party to do this, where Jim Gray's been here for 30 years. If he wanted to run for president, he kind of could have done that from the get-go.
And I do the one thing that Amash is going to help is get into the debates, which has never been able to break down, right? So, like, I think he offers some credibility. I think, listen, I have zero faith in the debate commission to actually do the right thing. So maybe that's why they'll do the wrong thing and actually allow Amash to participate, because they don't like Trump or whatever reasons. Like, they'll actually be not all that genuine of a people. They'll actually allow Amash onto the debate stage because they think he can cause some havoc. Either way, I think that he is best positioned to enter the debate stage. And listen, I mean, could you just imagine him? I mean, I'm assuming they're going to put him on the end, because you can't put that guy in the middle of two octogenarians and then just think that everybody's not going to be looking at the 40-year-old instead of the 75-year-old guys, right? So he's going to be tucked off to the side, one or the other. I mean, Howie Hawkins he's going to look like young, fresh-faced kid up there when it happens. So I think the perception of him being on stage could just be, that overwhelming kind of like, what are we doing voting for these two guys up here? Like, almost like a realization as they're looking at it, being like, what are we doing? Why are we picking between these two? As I like to say, the 70-whatever-year-old rapey narcissist or the 70-year-old rapey demented guy, right? So like,
Right.
Like if that picture is presented on TV, disregard Howie Hawkins here for a second, and Justin Amash is positioned against those two, it's very easy to walk in and vote for Justin Amash.
Right.
He's you can walk out with a clean mind, right? You can walk out with a clean conscience, be like, they want to, that I feel like are going to take the country down a road that I want to take them down. So I think getting in the debates is just monumental, and I think he offers the best chance for that to happen for the party.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, you mentioned the age thing. If Howie Hawkins is the Green Party nominee, we and 80% of the Libertarian candidates, would also fall into the category of 65 plus old white guys, which I feel like
Sure.
there's a big chunk of the country that doesn't want to vote for another old white guy. We had
I think you're right.
one president in quite a while that didn't fall into that category, and he wasn't that great either.
And I think Amash has he's Orthodox Christian. He's not necessarily this or that. He's kind of a unique religious aspect. He's he's not a white guy, right? So like he has some ethnicity to him. He doesn't. He checks a lot of boxes that people are looking for to make sure, as they're not voting for the old white guy. So and like I said, I think he's a great messenger. I think he stays on principle. He knows how to take a question, even if it's directed to a way that is adversarial, he can turn it back and take the moral high ground, right? So he would be great for the party. Like I said, I think he offers us the best chance to make the best impact that the party's ever had, more so than Gary Johnson.
Right, and I'm getting corrected here in the comments because Vermin Supreme is only 58, so he's not 65 plus.
Chicken.
But
spring chicken.
I would, as most people would, still consider that pretty old. What was that?
58? How old is the boot?
Have either of you guys had the chance to meet Vermin Supreme by any chance?
I met him in 2016 without the boot. He's quite an interesting character. Listen, so on Vermin, I think he's fun, right? So like, he's a character. He does an excellent job. I love it. I love the shtick. I'm not sure that it's right for a presidential campaign. If there were no candidates that I could back and you wanted to kind of run a character actor as a way to generate some publicity, I guess I could see that angle. It's not really my style, I guess. I have no problem with him running because I think that the whole system is a sham, and him shedding light on that is worthwhile. But I did get to meet at the Orlando 2016 without the boot. There was like maybe a handful of LPNY people. And he's interesting. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. I don't think he's by any means a stupid person. I think he plays a character. He plays it exceptionally well. I think he tries to point out the hypocrisy of the election electoral process. I think he does an excellent job at it. I'm not going to vote for him for president, but I welcome his participation.
I met him in Olean in 2019 at the state committee meeting, the in-person state committee meeting, and I kind of agree with Shawn. Like he's he's smart. He's not, he is putting on a show, and he has this character that he plays. But outside of that, if you're just talking to the guy, he's actually really likable. And I found myself liking him. I hate him as a candidate. I like him as a person. I think and again, like if we were literally just going to run someone as a FU to the system, that would be our guy.
Yeah.
But that's not, in my opinion, what our goal should be. I think, we really need to start looking towards electoral victories. And he's just not, to the average voter, he's too foreign to them, to what they see as a politician or a presidential candidate. We're just not there yet to where we can say, and one of his slogans is like, hey, we understand that this whole, system is a sham, but here is Vermin Supreme. Or what does he say? The whole process basically is rigged and all that, but here's Vermin Supreme. This is the Libertarian party's contribution to the sham, basically. And I'm not there yet. I don't think that's a great strategy. I don't not like the guy. I think he's hilarious. And I loved meeting him, and I had a good time with him. But I don't think that that's a good strategy to grow our party. I just don't see it yet.
Especially not if
Yeah.
you're comparing that with a Justin Amash or even a Judge Gray, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
or even some of the other candidates. Like, there's better messages to be had at the level. I guess that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I got to meet him a handful of times while I was up in New Hampshire. I actually got to smoke weed with him on election night, and yeah, he's a great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. He was fairly busy most of the times that I did get to talk to him, so I would love to be able to sit down and have a conversation with him. I actually am working on getting him on the show sometime in like mid-May before the convention happens, because I want to. What I haven't heard enough of is, okay, this is like your joke platform of the free ponies and the mandatory toothbrushing laws and that stuff. What are you actually going to do? If somehow, Hail Mary, you get the nomination, you win presidency, like what are you actually going to do is a question that I think I would need answered before I could really throw any kind of support behind him. But a
Yeah, I
decent
can't even
chunk
get
of
to that
my
point.
yeah. A decent chunk of my friends and actually basically everybody that worked on my city council campaign is on Team Supreme, and so I've gotten to hear some more legitimate messaging from some of them, and I think the main pull for him is that. Um, like you guys were saying, if we didn't have any serious candidates and we were just going to run a joke, he would be the guy. And I think they're just not seeing anybody else in the race as a serious candidate. I mean, Armstrong is a great person. Jim Gray has been, really loyal to the party for quite a while, but nobody really compares to him with name recognition at the moment, and are just kind of still fall into that old white guy category that's just going to kind of run the same campaign that we've seen the LP run over and over again. And that's not my opinion per se, but I think that's where most of his support is coming from. Is they're already to that point that you guys both mentioned of, if we didn't have somebody.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I've seen people talk about like old white guys, and I'm not supporting this, but you got to think about the average voter, not the Libertarian Party advocate. They vote for old white guys, okay? And to put a guy with a boot on his head out there and think he's going to get 135,000 votes or whatever we may need next year is crazy, right? Like it's not going to happen. He's not going to get that in New York State, not necessarily elsewhere either. We people look to politicians or people who look like politicians who have government experience. Ken Armstrong has government experience. He would be a better candidate than Vermin Supreme, because the average voter doesn't dig as deep as we do and doesn't look into it like we do. We got to start thinking, if we're going to play politics, we need to understand a little bit about how the average voter votes, not just how the Libertarian Party advocates think, basically. I don't know. That's an unpopular opinion, but that's kind of like what we need to start. A guy with a boot on his head is not going to get us ballot access in all 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a step backwards.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely. The one thing I will say is that I would prefer him to some of the more anarchist candidates like Dan Berman or Arvin Vora or Adam Kokesh. I mean, they all pretty much have the same message of, this is a sham and here's our guy. But I think he takes a stance that is a little bit more logical than, if elected, I'm gonna disband the federal government. I don't think anybody, as you mentioned, the actual electorate, none of those people are gonna resonate with, let's just get rid of the federal government.
Yeah, it's quite the ask.
For sure. So you mentioned that, though, Steve, that you worked with both Dan and Ken earlier on. Was that just mostly with petitioning, or how were you involved in those campaigns?
Sure. So I was involved in petitioning, and then Dan did not meet the signature threshold. So then I was helping him get on the ballot as the nationally known clause, where if you're a nationally known candidate, you can get on the ballot. And so I was helping him prepare that paperwork, but we didn't get a delegate list in order, and it was kind of a whole thing. It's hard to get on the ballot in New York State. It's definitely a process, and we were learning as we went. And then and realistically, I jumped. I like Dan. I've had multiple interactions with him, and he's a really great dude, and a great libertarian. The issue was he just didn't. We didn't have the organization in New York State to really get to the finish line and get him on the ballot. So he ultimately was pushed off the ballot. So then Ken Armstrong, who was my second choice, I jumped on board with Ken, who I like a lot. I like Ken for many different reasons, right? Like, he's well spoken. He again has some government experience, which the normal voter is going to be looking for, some kind of government experience. He was a NATO commander. So he's seen kind of the issues with the federal government. I like him a lot. So I've been working with him doing some reaching out to delegates and volunteer coordination and things like that, which has been good. I've enjoyed that, but yeah. And then now, ultimately, I don't know who I'm with. I wish I could tell you. I still like Ken and Dan both. Again, love Dan Berman. Do I think he's going to win the nomination? No, I don't. Love Ken Armstrong. Do I think he's going to win the nomination? He might. If Justin Amash jumps in the race, do I then have to reevaluate kind of where I'm at? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think Amash wins, right? I mean, I don't know. Did you guys hear the rumors out there that he joined Libertarian Party today, lifetime member?
You sent me.
Who knows if that's true or not, right? So I've seen it multiple places. That's like the first thing you got to do to run. If that's true, he's running, right? Like, there's no reason to do that if he's not running.
Yeah, I know Lincoln Chafee took a while between doing that and actually announcing his campaign, and nobody took that seriously. He was like, "Oh yeah, I don't know." I actually asked him point blank to his face, because he came to a New Hampshire Libertarian meeting, and I asked him in the middle of his Q&A point, when are you going to run for something? And he was all like, "Oh, I don't know, we're still kind of feeling out the party." And I think within 2 weeks of me asking him that question, he was a presidential candidate, and I was like, we all knew it was coming.
Yeah, and I said this to Steve earlier. Amash had to become a lifetime member, and before he's going to run for president, it's kind of been stigmatized a little bit because of the way Bill Weld declared his, I'm a member for life, and kind of shook his membership card at the delegation, at the convention in Orlando, basically saying, I'm in it, you need me. And, 4 years later, he's, left the party. And I'm not saying I'm missing him. I'm just saying he's out of the party. He's no longer, we took his $1,500 basically and said, thanks. So it's hard for me I don't think that's the same way it's going to play out for Justin Amash. I think he's just, first of all, a more principled and better person than Bill Weld. I think Bill Weld is the typical politician, and his track record in New York libertarian circles go back much farther than 2016. So, like I said, he's got a track record of not being all that forthright, I guess. So I don't think that's the same with Justin Amash. I think his lifetime membership means something way more significant than Bill Weld's does. I hope he runs for president. I hope he runs for president in 2024. And then I hope he runs for president either in re-election in 2024 or again in 2024, I guess. I hope he's in it for the long haul. I hope that he, is a face of the franchise, if you will, going forward for the Libertarian Party.
I was definitely, I know that there is some baggage attached to Bill Weld, most of which came long before I was a member of the party. So I didn't have much of an experience with that, but it definitely made me sad to see him leave the party. But I actually kind of campaigned for him a little bit in New Hampshire while I was campaigning for Tulsi, because they have a semi-open primary. So if you're already a registered Republican past somewhere in the middle of October, you can't vote in the Democratic primary. So anybody that I talked to that said that they were Republican, I was like, all right, well, you have another choice. It doesn't have to just be Trump. Go vote for Bill Weld. And he actually did better than Tulsi did, percentage-wise. So
yeah, and Weld's history with New York State goes back to where he tried to run for governor under the Libertarian Party ballot before we had ballot access, and this was like a '92, I think it was, when Pataki was running, or whatever year it was. But he had committed to being Libertarian Party governor candidate, which at that time was the sole way for the party to gain ballot access. So the party was very, excited about having a legitimate candidate running as their governor candidate, thinking that was going to be their ticket to ballot access. And then he withdrew late after not receiving the Republican designation, and then withdrew from the Libertarian Party designation as well, leaving the party, a shorter time to get a candidate up and running. And it was a much lesser candidate than Bill Weld, and obviously left a black mark for the party and Bill Weld. I mean, this was all stuff that I was learning as it was becoming apparent that Weld was going to be the vice presidential frontrunner, if you will. I got a crash course in this LPNY history with Bill Weld, and it painted him as a opportunist politician. So I can see why people are concerned about that, because we've had the Bob Barrs and the Bill Welds of the world coming into the Libertarian Party who have come from these other parties last minute and seemingly switched. Maybe I'm naive, but I think I have a different take on the Justin Amash switch. And again, I just feel like he's a different person. He's doing it for different reasons. I think he's been an outspoken libertarian and a self-identified libertarian, since his first run in Congress. So I don't think it's new to him, the party. I don't think that it's new to him, the philosophy. I think he's embraced it this whole time. And I don't think it's going to be that much. I think it'll be a sell for the delegation in a way that needs to do it. Like, he actually needs to go through the process of reaching out to the delegation in a sincere way. But I don't have any problem. I have no doubts that he can do it. Like, I think he's a principled politician who's going to be able to resonate with the delegation and win the nomination.
Yeah, I think him being an independent already definitely helps with that. He isn't a Republican or a Democrat going into this, so to defect back to a major party would be even more of a stretch for him, I think.
For sure.
I mean, I think that, and the fact that he, basically shunned his own party in voting for impeachment is going to win over those disaffected Democrats. I think Amash would be a great choice if he does throw his hat in the ring. I know he hasn't yet, but I think it would be a great choice. And minus the few haters, I think the Libertarian Party would embrace him.
And I think the media would jump on
he's already
bandwagon a little bit, right? Like, I think some of the even some of the traditional legacy media would latch on to his campaign because he has a national spotlight already. It's he's got some name recognition. He's done some things that people can identify with. Like, when I talk to some Democrat people, like, hey, have you ever heard of Justin Amash? They don't. Or they seem like, oh, maybe, and then I say he's the former GOP congressman who, and they're like, oh yeah, immediately they know who I'm talking about, even if they don't recognize the name right out of hand. So almost always in a positive light, right, from the left. So like, clearly he positioned himself well enough to be able to allow himself at least to engage the left and hopefully bring out some votes with that. Like, I think Steve brought this up earlier. The Never Trumpers are going to vote for him no matter what, because they're not going to vote for Biden. Well, some will, I guess. Who cares? But I think that there's going to be a lot of the traditional voter types who didn't want to vote for Trump will be much, again, clear of mind voting for Justin Amash.
Yeah, because the Democrats aren't putting up much of a better candidate this time than they did last time. I mean, I would take Joe Biden over Hillary Clinton any day of the week, but not by much.
Let me see vice president first, because that's going to be the president.
Say that again?
I said, let me see who he picks as vice president first, because that's who's going to eventually be the president, because I can't imagine Joe Biden lasting 4 years as president.
Yeah, and I think
can you guys, like, his mental health has deteriorated significantly in the last 6 months. Significantly. And maybe people are just shedding light on it more, and maybe it was more prevalent even 6 months ago, but like, it seems to be getting worse. Like, and it's not like I'm the only one saying it, so like, I don't feel like I'm talking out of turn here. Like, there's a lot of people who are concerned that he's not doing well.
Right. And I think the current front runner for his VP pick is worse than anybody else, and that's Kamala Harris. She was at the very, very bottom of my list out of the Democratic primary. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel
and
like
that's going to turn
she's in
off a
the
lot
mix.
of people.
And who's the was it Stacey Abrams from Georgia? I feel like she gets a lot of
Hmm.
traction as a presidential
Yeah, I've
candidate.
seen that, a
And then
few
I've seen
news
Michelle
stories about
Obama
her.
too, right? So that's a new one.
Yeah, I think Michelle Obama is, I think, speculation
I think
personally,
he's just
but
right. I do think you're right. I think he's trying to just make sure he solidifies his Obama base.
mhm. Yeah, Stacey Abrams isn't that bad. I out of those three, I think she would probably be my favorite. He has said that he will pick a woman of color, so that kind of narrows down the field
We
pretty
forgot about it
significantly.
already.
True. But yeah, I mean, Amash was even one of the top conversation pieces within the Tulsi Gabbard campaign as a VP pick. Most of the people towards the bottom of the pyramid, that he was pretty high up on the top of most people's list if it wasn't Bernie.
And I don't think it's even remotely likely, but there was talk of the exact opposite way with Amash if he was going to try to grab Tulsi to be the VP through the Libertarian ticket, right? Like, I'm
I
not
would
sure
love that.
as I think the ticket offers something that no other ticket could offer. I don't know that it could survive or even manifest itself in through the Libertarian Party because I don't know that she could do it. She might be able to. I mean, she strikes some chords, but like some of the diehards are just going to be a hell no to her no matter what. But I think she would be, a huge asset for an Amash campaign if he went forward. If he could wait to incorporate her into a presidential run, would be extremely beneficial to the campaign.
Yeah, she would have to drop some of the pandering that she does to try to get the Democratic
Yeah,
vote.
I think you're right.
But I know from experience that most of the things that I don't like about what she says is pandering. Like her stance on gun rights. Uh, she opposed the assault weapons ban that passed last year heavily, and then her constituents tore to shreds for it, and she ended up voting for it because that's her job. And she's even spoken that to me that I'm a representative of my constituents. They wanted the vote to go this way, so the vote went this way. That's my job, which I can respect as a voter. But if she's running in the LP, she doesn't have to pander for that or really any of the other kind of lefty things that I know that she does.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's a very principled person. So, like, I think when she said that she was going to commit to the eventual Democrat nominee, it was hard for her to back away from that
Mhm.
because it makes it look like she's sincere. So, I don't fault her for that. I just don't ever think it's a good idea at the beginning of a presidential race or any race to say you're going to endorse the eventual nominee because you could get Joe Biden.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you have to sign a legally binding document to get on the ballot within the Democratic Party. So she would have been sued had she not endorsed Joe Biden, or
Which,
supported him. There's a little bit
I
of
mean, right, and
catch there.
that's to her. She did. I said knew her by saying that she was just support the campaign as opposed to endorse him, but
Hmm.
maybe that's to satisfy the legal technical aspect of running,
Yeah.
which is just another shady shit that the DNC is pulling. Like, how do they still exist?
Hmm. Yeah, I wish, as much as I dislike watching that happen in the Democratic Party, I kind of wish that we had some resemblance of that within the Libertarian Party. Not the legally binding document, but just to see everybody go behind Joe Biden the way that they have. As much as I dislike Joe Biden, and I think they're all morons for doing so, it would be nice to see that in the Libertarian Party. Have whoever
So,
wins,
so
everybody up there
it
pushing for
can
that
happen
person.
though. So it takes the right candidate. Um, Only because, and I'll say that this is just anecdotally, and only the one time I went to convention, is I did watch that around Larry Sharp specifically. So 2016, Gary Johnson won the presidential race through, I think it was the second ballot. I think he got it through. So immediately after, he pleads his case for Bill Weld on the floor of the convention there. We do first round of voting. Bill Weld does not win. Larry's in second. Not close. The first round of voting was not particularly close, but all the other vice presidential candidates rallied around Larry and said, "Hey, this is going to be the guy." So it's not exactly the same, but I think it can happen if the candidate is the right candidate. And obviously, this was a convergence of two personalities: the hatred for Bill Weld and the adoration for Larry Sharpe. So both of those things probably contributed to the fact that they rallied around Larry, simultaneously rallying against Bill Weld. But it can happen. It's I know what you're saying, because if there's 3 libertarians in a room, 2 of them aren't libertarian, right? So that's just how libertarians are. They're constantly trying to evaluate the libertarian values or bona fides of the other libertarians. But I think that there is an underlying desire for the party, and specifically the party's message, to resonate. So if there's a person out there who I think can do that, I think the delegation and party membership would be willing to rally. But it won't be with somebody who's divisive. It's not going to be a Arvin Vohra type who has already burned so many bridges that he's never going to be able to rally the troops. It may not be an Adam Kokesh type for similar reasons. There's going to be reasons why it won't happen. It's going to take a charismatic candidate to rally around, and/or simultaneously a candidate to rally against, which is what we had, the perfect storm in 2016. But it can happen. I think it can happen.
Right. I don't think it would happen for Amash, unfortunately, because I think there's still kind of the two groups of like the pragmatists and the idealists, and there would be, maybe the Ken Armstrongs and the Jim Grays might rally behind Amash, but the Arvin Vohras or the Kokeshes will not.
Maybe you're right, but I think that that's a big enough delegation to win. He doesn't need the radical caucus to win the nomination.
I mean, I think the fact that Gary Johnson was able to win in 2016 shows that the pragmatists do in the end win the day.
Yeah, there's more of them.
There's way more pragmatists than there are necessarily the audacious folks, or even the lib socks, which are like a growing number of people. I think that if Amash were to declare, I think he'd win on the second ballot.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I more mean afterwards, honestly. I think the pragmatists usually win at the convention, but I've seen way too many people that don't support the eventual nominee, won't even show up to vote for them, even though they're like dues-paying active members of the Libertarian Party. I met somebody that refused to vote both for Gary Johnson and Larry Sharpe and myself and Devin when we ran last year, just because we weren't libertarian enough. And
you're never going to get that guy, though, right? So like it's hard to try to cater to every single part of the delegation. Like you just got to try to get the big enough coalition to win. I think he's started the biggest head start because he's got the pragmatist caucus, if you will. So like he's lead. He's going to sell his message. I'm not dismissing. He's, like I said, I think he wins in his second round because I think he's just an effective messenger, and I think eventually he'll win over the delegation, or at least enough of the delegation to win the nomination. You're probably right, though, that the ones who are constantly measuring everybody's libertarianism, they're never going to support him, or will support him in small numbers. In large part, they don't see the party as a lot of times an effective tool either, right? They think it's almost like a necessary evil, and they don't really root for the party to be successful, I don't think, sometimes, other than just a vehicle for the message as opposed to trying to winning electoral politics.
Right. Did either of you guys catch the Nick Sarwark versus Dave Smith debate at the Soho Forum?
No, I did not. I'm well aware that happened, and I've seen some outcuts of it, but that's something that I do want to go back and watch.
I wish I did, because I do listen to Dave Smith's podcast, but I did not listen to it in full.
It was.
Did you? Yeah, I mean, you did then, Dave.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend.
Give us the Cliff Notes version.
Basically, the resolution was, should the LP ever support a candidate like Gary Johnson again? And with Dave Smith arguing that they should not, and Nick Sarwark defending his choice to support Gary twice as the chair. And really, they kept continuing to break down and fall on two different sides of an argument. And they, in my opinion, they were both arguing that what they do for a living is the correct thing to do and that the other person should be doing what they do. So Nick is up there arguing that the point of the Libertarian Party is to win elections, which as the chairman of the party, that is his job. And Dave Smith is up there arguing that it's the job of the party to spread messaging, which as a podcaster and a comedian is what he does on a daily basis. And so I would have loved to have been
true, right?
Say that again?
I don't know. I think both those things can be true, right? Does it have to be one or the other?
That, in my opinion, no. But they both seem to. I mean, especially for the purpose of the debate, they kind of had to argue
right.
one or the other. But I would have loved to have gone up to both of them afterwards and just said, you guys are both doing what you're saying everybody should be doing. You're doing your part while the other one is doing their part. It's not the chairman's job to spread messaging. It's his job to win elections, and it's not a podcaster and a comedian's job to win elections. Although I would love to see Dave Smith try to run for office. That would be amusing to watch.
I mean, Dave Smith is a great messenger. I like his podcast. He's a good messenger. He speaks well. He speaks well of libertarianism. I mean, he sometimes gets he airs a little too close to Trump supporting, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Nick Sarwark was probably right in that. Look, we need as a party. Nick Sarwark's job is not to advocate for libertarianism, the philosophy. His job is to run the political party, the political arm of libertarian philosophy, right? So yeah, his goal is to win elections, and we need to run the candidates that are going to get us. Obviously, we're not going to run someone who's so far away from libertarianism because we think it'll win an election. But his job is to take our candidate and advocate for them and try to win an election. So yeah, I don't think those things are exclusive. But
I mean, we like to have somebody who can do both effectively, but
sure,
that's a hard skill set to kind of marry. So again, that's an engineer with a salesman degree or something. So a salesman with an engineer degree.
Yeah, I mean, so Nick Sarwark is a salesman.
Yeah. Yeah, and a pretty good one at that, if I say so. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Nick as a person. I'm actually pretty sad that he's not running for re-election. I'm pretty torn on who I like for the chairmanship at this point. I definitely I don't like Joshua Smith. I've had way too many run-ins with the Mises Caucus, and they were not very supportive or friendly in any of them. So not a big fan there. But I don't know anything about Bishop Henchman to really throw my support behind him the way that I did Sarwark. And now I'm going to space on his name. One of Team Supreme's main guys is just threw his hat in the ring. Hold on.
Spike?
No, it's his political director. Manzo, Richard Manzo.
Don't know who that
is.
As long as he's dance on stage naked in a thong, we're good.
Yeah, that's a pretty low bar, but let's hope that we can at least.
I'm just trying to set one. We're trying to set a bar. I'm just trying to set it.
Yeah.
As low as I possibly can. I think we can meet it.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about Manzo is he's won elections He's on his county finance committee, I think, something like that. He can correct me later. And he's, I think, vice chair of the Southern New Hampshire party. And then like in the top 5 people within the circle of Vermin Supreme. So he's got experience, but I don't know. Nobody really running, I think, has the kind of experience that I would like to see in a national chairman.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with I'm familiar with the names, but I'm not familiar enough with the background of any of the candidates to kind of give you a hot take on who I'd be voting for. I would be interested in making sure to attend as many of the chairman debates and interactions as possible during the convention, if and when the convention happens, for sure.
Right. Oh, and Mike Shipley, I'm getting corrected in the comments, is also in there. So it's a 4-way race currently.
Yeah, I haven't made a choice either on chair who I would vote for LNC. I like Nick Sarwark. I think he's professional. I think he look, he gets on the news where he's on MSNBC all the time. It's rare that we get asked to give our input on freaking anything. So if we have a guy that is attractive to national news media, I'm all for it. But and to be honest, I don't know if any of the 4 that are up in the race now will get that kind of opportunity.
Right. Unfortunately, probably not.
Yeah.
It's gonna. Yeah, I'm definitely. I think Nick is going to be sorely missed by exactly 60% of the party.
It's probably about right.
No, he was very helpful. Well, I was up in New Hampshire. I was actually staying in the same city that he lives in, so I got to hang out with him quite a bit. Actually ate Thanksgiving dinner at his house.
Are you taller?
What was that?
Are you taller
Then Nick? I believe so. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that.
The first time I ever stood next to an elevator, I had to take a double take because I was like, "Whoa, I'm way taller." I mean, I'm kind of tall, but I was way taller than that guy.
Yeah, Sean's like 6'8", so
no, but it was noticeable. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. I just remember that he makes some really, really good eggnog.
that's a good skill set.
Oh yeah,
I know people hate hearing that he can run a meeting, but that dude can run a meeting too. So listen,
which is what we need.
The dancing guy came out, and the only time when he wasn't there, I was like, "Oh my god!" So maybe that's why I have it burned into my brain that he can run a meeting, because the only time he wasn't running a meeting is when it all hell broke loose. But that's beside the point. Again, yeah. I think he's been a more than respectable chair. I think he's been, as Steve said, the ability to kind of branch into traditional media is important. I think he's credible when he's on those that gets those appearances. He doesn't embarrass the party. He pushes the party message. Like, he's good at it. Listen, I think he picks fights with some people who, I don't understand why he's picking fights with people, but whatever. They're libertarians, so people pick fights. But whatever. I mean, like I said, I think I'm not sure how the transition will be. I think that he's done okay as the chair. If he was running again, he would be the favorite.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the best pieces of advice he's ever given me, to your point about picking fights, he said if he posts something on Twitter and someone is commenting something obnoxious, he basically clicks on their profile and sees if they have more followers than him or not, and if they don't, he ignores it. And I'm like, all right, that's a pretty good rule to live by.
Well, that's a way to eliminate me and you from discussion,
right?
So, I'm sure that's an effective tool. It's just it seems like a boast more than anything else, but sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I'm sure there's people who have more followers than him that probably he doesn't care 2 shits about either. So
yeah, I mean, I know anytime that I've engaged with the Mises Caucus online, it did not end favorably for really anyone in the conversation.
I know they have they definitely have it out for Mr. Sarwark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also didn't like me very much while I was running. I was part of the problem for running for office, which I don't really understand how we can be a political party that doesn't run for office.
Got to have candidates.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think now without Nick, Josh Smith definitely has a better chance at taking it. But
I
like you
think
guys
he's
were
the
saying
favorite.
earlier, yeah. But still, I think like was mentioned earlier, the pragmatists usually win in the end. So we'll
That's
definitely
the
see about
traditional.
that.
I do think, yeah, right. You know, obviously, our delegation's a little different, and this year's is going to be maybe the most different of them all. So we'll see how it actually plays out. But like I
Yeah.
said, I do think that they always start with a lead, and then it's their who's the pragmatist caucus, I guess.
Yeah. Are any of you guys considering or would consider a run for office yourselves?
Not I. I've sworn running for office from. I've been asked pretty much for the last 10 years in a row about running for office, and the answer has stayed the same: no.
So I am in the military, so I cannot run for office for at least another 8 years.
Okay.
However, I have never ruled that out.
All right. So
I
we
would
got 8.
definitely run for office. Yeah.
Steve, wait, how old are you?
What's that?
How old are you?
I am 33, so I'll be
Okay.
41
Yeah,
when I get out
all
of the
offices
military.
will be available by the time you're ready to run for office.
Yeah, so I mean, the plan is, unfortunately, so one of the reasons that I'm not running for the state committee next year is because, the military is sending me away in October from New York State. So I'm going, it looks like I'll be going to the DC area. And I plan to still continue my activism and still work with the Libertarian Party there. But after I get out of the military, I want to come back to New York. And yes, I would 100% consider running for office.
Awesome. Well, I definitely look forward to working on your campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious though,
Thank
Shawn,
you.
why you've rule it out completely.
Oh man,
He shouldn't.
I have just zero interest. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm well positioned in where I'm at now and being able to find candidates, recruit candidates, bring them and bring them to elected office or campaigns. But I don't know. That just doesn't. It's never resonated with me. It's just I'd rather be on the campaign side than the candidate side, I guess. I will help.
Yeah.
I'll help as many candidates as I find worthwhile for sure. But
He's electable. He's likable. There's no reason he shouldn't run.
Yeah, I mean, definitely party positions and political positions are two different skill sets for sure. But and you do a great job at what you do.
well, thank you.
I wouldn't mind seeing you throw your hat in the ring for national sometime.
I don't think that's in my future either, but
Please,
I
God.
appreciate the sentiments. I appreciate the sentiments.
Do you know who's running for a national representative for our region?
I do not. Is it your boy?
Initials LW.
Your boy Luke Wenke?
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Oh,
I
fun.
mean for what is that regional? Was it Region 8? Are we are?
8.
Hmm.
Who else is running?
No one. That's the problem.
No one in the whole region is running except for him.
Correct.
Wow.
Okay, that needs to change.
Yeah, Dave, what are you doing?
Yeah, Dave, come on, man.
What
I
doing,
doubt I'm in the same region.
What you're New York and New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's New York,
True.
New Jersey, Pennsylvania, right? Pennsylvania they added last year or whatever. You're in it.
Okay, I just
All right.
might then.
Okay, he's running. You heard
Keep
it.
an open mind.
Fight
Keep an open
2020.
mind.
Here we go.
Oh, geez.
You heard it here. Breaking
Just
news.
announcing a bunch of campaigns. Yeah, I'm definitely. I know I missed the deadline to actually be on the original slate, but will probably be or hopefully filling a vacant position on the state committee from Brooklyn
Nice.
after everything settles in September, and you have to fill the vacancy.
Good stuff. Good,
Yeah, I
man.
think
Yeah,
I think I
I'm
should probably
hoping
start
that.
out as a state before I try to go national, but I don't know. Leaving Luke up unopposed sounds like also a bad idea.
Yeah, it's absolutely
They,
suicide.
are those live streams, those meetings? Because if he wins, I might have to watch
It would be entertaining, I guess, but
Yeah.
God, we can. I mean, look, I'm one of those pragmatists, and I think that kid is political suicide as a party to have him represent us in any way whatsoever.
hmm
I think that's a disaster.
Yeah, especially after what happened with the New York primary. I think
Yeah,
that killed any little sliver of hope that I had that he was worthy.
God, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I I'm just praying that, with this, I do hope you do fill that vacancy on the state committee, because I am slightly nervous about this new state committee that's taking over, right? Like a lot of libertarians, very principled libertarians, didn't necessarily know how to navigate the petitioning process and getting on the ballot and running the way that this is going to happen from now on, like running in a fashion that the Republicans and the Democrats had so much experience in, that we may, just like we had Republican takeovers in Broome and Niagara, we may see something like that going on statewide. um, so I am nervous about this being our first time doing this.
Yeah, I got a little bit concerned watching that kind of unfold last year. I know last year was kind of a weird year as far as ballot access. Definitely helped me out because I didn't have to petition at all to run. Uh, but yeah, there's not a lot of people that know how to run a legitimate campaign in the party, especially spread out. When we're running local elections, there's just not enough people in each city and each county to really help run a successful campaign, and it's been kind of rough to watch. Um, I was trying to do my part to help out some of the 2020 candidates before I left for New Hampshire. Got some of them kind of going, and then luckily we have. I don't know if you guys both know Gary Pumpkin from Brooklyn.
Hmm.
He's a genius. Especially as far as election law goes. So we didn't get any of our petitions challenged. We have, I think, 6 congressional candidates running this year within the city,
Wow.
something like that. And yeah, nobody got their petitions challenged. They're all actually on the ballot. We're good to go for November. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah, it's more than I would have thought. That's great. And Gary, yes, is an election law savant.
hmm I was blown away by how old he is, because he doesn't act it or look it, but he's in his mid-90s.
Oh, really? I didn't know that
Yeah,
either.
he rides his bike to every Brooklyn LP meeting,
Wow.
and yeah, it blew me away for sure.
I've never
Um,
met him in person, so
mm,
I want to beat him someday.
right.
yeah, right.
Uh, yeah, his resume is crazy. Um, and then I think we have one New York State Senate candidate from the city, and that's Tucker. So love him. He's a great guy. Will enjoy helping him out in any way that I can once I make it back down into the city.
Tucker's the shit. I like Tucker a lot. Tucker's the one who got me involved in the Sharp campaign. I needed field work hours for my college, and I told him, like, hey man, put me to work, and he's like, all right, here, you can deliver signs. And so I was driving across 6 counties delivering yard signs for Larry Sharp. And then I eventually became the Central New York regional campaign director. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, Tucker's the first one to like give me a job in the LP.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, Tucker's a good dude.
for sure. The only main experience that I have working with him was helping him set up our presence, whatever, in the New York City Pride Parade last year, which went actually really well. I wasn't expecting it because we have a pretty bad reputation among the more progressive leftist people, especially in New York City. We had the rainbow Gadsden flags with us, and I was told that I was carrying a racist flag, even though it was like a pride rainbow. So definitely some pushback, but we got a much better response from the people in the crowd during the parade than I was expecting at all, which was nice to see.
Wow.
But hey, so we're kind of running out of time. So tell everybody watching how they can find you on social media or get involved in the county party or the state party.
Go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook. I'm not under any aliases anywhere. If you find me on Twitter, on my real name. Facebook, on my real name. If you look over my back shoulder here, you'll see Sports, Clicks, and Politics. That's something that's going to be coming soon for anybody who's interested in listening to me talk more. It won't strictly be politics, as the title suggests. I'll be talking about pretty much anything I want, but expect that in May. I got a co-host that I'll be working on with, and we'll be doing some live streaming and some news type recaps and such. So that should be coming out soon. Looking forward to that.
Awesome.
I don't do anything cool like that or any podcasting.
Oh, come on, Steve.
Yeah, I don't do anything cool. But I'm on Facebook. I'm Steve Minogue, Minogue. I'm the vice chair of the county party. Maybe the vice chair of the state party coming soon. And I'm supporting LP candidates all over the place, and I am looking forward to supporting our presidential candidate coming up. But yeah, if you ever need to reach me, Facebook is really probably the most active social media that I have. I don't really do Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, or I haven't in a long time.
All right. And what's the website for the county party right now?
OnondagaLibertarians.org.
All right. Awesome. And then, if you're watching this, you probably already know, but you can find me at Fight for Liberty at just about anything. If you like what you're hearing, you can definitely support the channel at patreon.com/Fight for Liberty.
And Dave, real quick, did you say you were going to Austin? If in fact we do have an Austin, yeah, is that your intention?
Yes, that is definitely my intention.
So I expect this a rekindling of the three people here in a delegation or a convention broadcast as well. Then.
All right, that sounds like a great time.
That would be fun.
Yeah, we'll be live streaming I'll try to be live tweeting the whole thing. Make sure everybody that didn't get a chance to go down knows all the fun ins and outs. But definitely, and I'll definitely love to have both of you guys back on the show sometime. This was great. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
My pleasure. All right, guys, have a great night.
Take it
Do the
easy.
same. Thanks, Dave.